Hi everyone, McBeard here. On stream today, I went through all of the newest cards that were released from the ChinaJoy event that is occurring right now. Today, we received some leaks that have been confirmed by CD Projekt Red to be part of a new build of Gwent, and apparently we're going to get a more formal look at these cards tomorrow, which would be Thursday. But today, on Wednesday, we got to have some fun doing some speculation and seeing these new cards and leaks. You know, it's looking good. Things are looking good. So we have only seen a few of these cards. So I'm going to let this just transition right into that piece of my stream. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Thanks to everybody who joined us live. And let's go. Let's talk about these new cards. So ChinaJoy is a big event. I didn't realize how big it was because I didn't know I was going to wake up to card reveals. I didn't think that that was going to come until Gamescom. I thought for sure we were going to get new card reveals or new content reveals at Gamescom, but I didn't think we'd get new cards today. So that's a big deal. That's a pretty big deal, I would say. But we did get new cards. Not only did we get new cards, we also got some card changes coming up. And, you know, it's really cool that, you know, different markets are going to get different reveals, perhaps. Maybe we'll see more at Gamescom. Maybe we'll actually find out everything. I mean, they're playing with a new build. Does this build only have some of the new cards? Are more leaks coming? I don't know. We don't know. But we can talk about those new cards and we can talk about the changes that we have seen. According to Reddit, Reddit basically has all the information out there. It's probably the top voted post right now. You could check it out. I'll provide a link below in the description. I'm going to say that now. Even though I'm on Twitch right now, this will be on YouTube. So let's talk about, let's start off with Vesemir, okay? So Vesemir is interesting. Vesemir, it looks like the Silver Witchers are either... I don't want to draw conclusions from this, right? I don't want to draw conclusions. I don't want to say that the Silver Witchers are gone. I don't want to say that there aren't going to be cards that are like the Silver Witchers, like a neutral muster silver, like the Crowns. I don't want to believe that they're gone, but I do want to believe that Vesemir is finally getting the golden border he deserves. And his new card is 6 strength, gold body, agile like all gold units are, where his ability is play an alchemy card from your deck. So with these reveals, with many of these reveals, it will raise more questions than perhaps gives answers. But we can draw some conclusions. We can assume some things. We can say that an alchemy card is likely going to be a Witcher potion of some kind. So you would have... It also draws from deck and doesn't just create it like how Kiramets would create a Thunderbolt potion out of nowhere. Vesemir actually draws it out of your deck. So you get thinning, but you do have to have that card in your deck. So what Vesemir is able to do is limited to what is actually in your deck. That's really important. But that also doesn't make him strictly better than Kira. And it also doesn't make him better as a neutral card than a faction card would be, like Kira is. So that's important to note. So if you were to put a Swallow Potion and a Thunderbolt Potion in your deck, you would play Vesemir, and then he would be able to draw you that card and play that card. So that's very cool. That's a cool effect. We know that Swallow and Thunderbolt and potentially Immune Boost would be on the roster of cards, and there may be more in the future. It is a Witcher game. We can assume more Witcher potions. But if you look at just Thunderbolt, then you can say, okay, great. So Thunderbolt has 12 value if it achieves full value. Vesemir 6, 18 points gold card. Absolutely great. You love 18 points on a gold card. A lot of cards are really good because they can achieve this value. So, and you get the thinning effect from it as well. So that's very good. So go Vesemir. I mean, I think it's interesting because while this card appears to be good, you'd probably have a build, you'd probably have something else going on to make better use of this. But there's a lot of great applications for Thunderbolt Potion anyway, or Swallow Potion maybe with Adrenaline Rush. And Immune Boost is really popular right now as well. So I see this card being played in some decks. I feel it would be a reasonable choice for some decks. So that's really cool, I think. I would say. That's pretty cool. Dijkstra. Not too much to say about this because it's just kind of showing that he has been buffed. Dijkstra at 3 is good. Dijkstra at 1, better, right? There's really not a lot to say about this. Dijkstra being used, you know, you can use him... Well, early game, it's risky. Late game, it can be very, very powerful. You can use him late game with Dandelion, where you know you're buffing the only possible units you can draw. You can use it late game with Witchers in your deck still, perhaps if you're, you know, if you're running Witchers, as Northern Realms tends to do. So Dijkstra at 1, I mean, without this becoming a full review of Dijkstra as a card, we all know that I like that card, and I have played it in the past. DJ Dijkstra just got a little bit better, but I don't think there's too much more to say about that. He's good at 3, he's better at 1. Rainfarn. Now, this is kind of unconfirmed, but there is this screenshot here of Rainfarn at 5. Now, does that mean, is there any other way he could have achieved a base strength of 5 without any sort of actual patch? I don't think there is. So we can assume that Rainfarn has been buffed to 5, which helps Nilfgaard. It's a tiny little tweak to Nilfgaard. I talked about before how Nilfgaard could probably get some of the nerfs back after John Calvert really went through the ringer with the Golem change, priority change, and then ultimately the inability to pull gold cards. So I felt that after all of those changes, Cahir and Rainfarm and potentially Calvert could have used the buff of strength. Maybe not all 3, but something in there just to give a little bit of extra help to Nilfgaard. So it may be that Nilfgaard got a buff, and it may be that Rainfarn is 5 now, which is good. Rainfarn, he got hit by 2 points when he was nerfed from 6 to 4. So just worth noting that Rainfarn may be better, and he may not be the only Nilfgaard that is better. But let's talk about the new card. So this is super interesting, okay? So we got the Assassin. So this is another Bronze Disloyal card for Nilfgaard. And while Emissaries play cards and Ambassadors buff cards, these are removal cards. So it kind of fits kind of within the set. It doesn't seem out of the ordinary. It seems like it's kind of along the lines of the Disloyal cards you might expect from Nilfgaard. But basically, see, if a unit doesn't have armor or a buff, it will remove that card. Unfortunately, lots of cards have armors and buffs. So, like, if you're playing against full test, you're not going to kill anything because everything's going to be buffed. And if you're playing against an armored unit, you're not going to get full value for the Assassin. And the Assassin, of course, is 2 as well. So, like, if you were removing a Nilfgaardian Knight, you're only hitting it for 8 because 2 of it would be absorbed by the armor, and you're giving your opponent 2, so now it's just a 6 strength bronze. It doesn't feel very good. But there's probably some snow volley cards, like ping cards, like War Longship, or I don't know, trebuchets. Like I'm struggling to find a card where this clear cut just removes. Like it doesn't remove an Anarchist Behemoth. It doesn't remove like, you know, pirate captains and spotters. Like it's only ever going to ding them for like, you know, from 6 to 4 or whatever, you know, whatever veteran level a pirate captain is on, or it's only going to do like an amount of damage. So you're playing it for value on a large base strength unit, or you're playing it on a unit that you are happy to just remove outright because you just don't want it to be there anymore. So it really has a lot to do with what unit you're trying to remove and if you can remove the unit or if that matters. So in a vacuum, this card doesn't seem great, but in relation to another card that Nilfgaard got, it may actually be very good, or at least an interesting inclusion. I mean, predicting cards without playing them, I'm going to give my opinion straight up, but when you make predictions about cards, they tend to, you know, you don't always hit the bullseye, right? I've been there. Some other people have been there for sure. So the Assassin, really cool. So it opens up new synergies for Emperor Brigade for sure. And of course, it opens up synergies for a different card as well. Actually, let's talk about that card. Yeah, this is the card here. The Magni Troop. So this card is an 8 strength bronze ranged unit where it gets boosted for every disloyal card in your hand. We don't know how much it gets boosted by. You could make the assumption that it gets boosted by 2, much like Emperor Brigade, but Emperor Brigade starts at 6 and this starts at 8. So it might actually be only 1. So, but it has a very respectable base strength. So even if you don't have like a full handful of disloyals, you're probably going to be semi-satisfied. Like if this thing can hit 10 or 11, it's good, right? You'd play it. You'd be happy with it in a later game, like in a top deck. But you'd probably want to get this like in your opening hand for sure, which makes me think that you may not want to run 3 of them in the first place. But I like this card because it's strong to begin with, and it provides a lot of power in decks trying to utilize synergy between disloyal cards, and perhaps you're running Assassins to promote that synergy. So Emissaries, Ambassadors, and Assassins, which sounds kind of bad. It sounds bad just to run a full disloyal deck, but there's some cool things that you can do with a full disloyal deck. So the original mold that CD Projekt Red had for Nilfgaard was, we want to have We want to have intrigue and information with reveal. We want to have infiltration with spies. And they like the idea of having big, chunky units and not so much like swarm or little stuff. So the Emperor Brigades kind of fit that mold, right? They interact with disloyals and they get nice and big, like huge units. So this unit could end up being like a big unit, especially as an early round play. So there's a couple things, like unlike Emperor Brigade, this card doesn't benefit from stuff like Raw Tossers, but they get their buffs up front, and it can provide strong early game tempo before setting up future plays, and it gives your opponent information, unfortunately. It will tell your opponent how many disloyal cards you have in your hand. You may not care about that. You may have a deck that's so, that works with it so well that it won't matter, but you do give your opponent information. Some people really don't like ever doing that. One of the reasons why people don't like, Sheila or old Philippa, how it tells your opponent exactly how many special cards are in your hand, things like that. But, that information is just not nothing. But the cool thing is, if you are running a mostly disloyal deck, that means that you could play a card like Joachim or Joachim or Joachim. And if you were playing a card like that, since Joachim he skips all the disloyal units, so he would pull this card out or another card that you probably want to see. So it really narrows the range of what Joachim can give you in like kind of like a more like an all-encompassing disloyal deck that you might run. Brigades, these guys, the Magni troops, maybe assassins, ambassadors, and emissaries. And, that could be your bronze core, perhaps. It doesn't sound great in my head, so I'm sure that there's some other synergy you can promote. But if you have a whole bunch of disloyal units, at least Joachim's going to pull something good for you. And, it might be okay. It's tough because we're looking at these in a vacuum, but I think that these cards open up the ideas of future interactions, right? Future interactions. All right, next card. We'll go back here. The Banard Tutor. So this is a 4-strength siege bronze card that I believe pulls a special card out of your deck, and then you shuffle a card back into your deck to replace that card. So you draw it, you don't play it, but you shuffle a card back into your deck. So this sounds good and bad. I think I'd have to see the deck that really refines the use of this card, but off the top, it works with Sheila. You need a special card in your hand for Sheila. This gives you a special card in your hand for Sheila. That's awesome. It works to fix your mulligans. Northern Realms tends to run, very mulligan-dependent decks with so many muster units, perhaps Witchers or Temerian infantry men or Blue Stripes Commandos. Stuff like that, you'd be able to shuffle those back into the deck, okay? So that's pretty good too, but it's the biggest problem this card has is that it's only 4 strength. So it's really, the turn you play it, you better be ahead. You better already be pushing at that point because it would feel pretty bad because this card doesn't really do anything on the other hand. This card doesn't really do anything for you outside of giving you the 4 strength at the time. But let's imagine that there's a card that has a future synergy with this card. Let's imagine that there is a card that gets boosted or played or has some other effect when you shuffle a card back into your deck. Maybe that's something that could exist in the future. A card that just gets stronger when it goes back into your deck, and maybe Northern Realms might end up being that faction. It would work with Taller. I mean, it's not outside of a stretch of the imagination. Like Taller puts cards back in your deck. There are other cards, I believe, that put cards back in your deck. So, and then of course you have mulligans as well at the beginning of the round. It seems to me like it would make more sense in a mulligan style deck, but I think with more cards like this, you can make a case that it could actually be a thing. But that's just speculation because I think that if you play this card, you are giving up too much tempo to play it. I just don't think that the setup is worth it, and you're just better off just taking your chance with Sheila in the first place. So we'll have to see how good this card is, I think. So what's the pronunciation on this guy? Dorea Gure. So first of all, this guy looks like Life Coach, right? Come on. This guy looks like Life Coach. This might be a Life Coach tribute card. I am not sure, but it looks like him, doesn't it? These screens are coming right from Reddit, right? These are coming right from the thing. So there's text on the screen, but it is in Chinese, and I will read. But it is a 2-strength siege silver card that pulls one of 3 other units: Savage Bear, Wyvern, and Griffin. Now, we only see 3 of those cards shown. I don't think there's more than 3. It may be that there's more than 3. I would be okay with there being more than 3 because I feel like a 2-strength body maybe should give you more choice. But it's interesting. So, a couple things. He's pulling off faction cards. So generally playing something outside of your faction can be strong due to the impossible synergies that would otherwise never exist. So that's you got to be careful with that kind of stuff. So you either can make that very strong because of impossible synergies that would never exist, or these cards would be very weak, thereby being no synergy at all, which is one of the reasons Operator works so well. You can give your opponent a card they can't use. So this guy kind of walks a very fine line of mediocrity, right? He's flexible, which is the most important thing, but the only like tech perfect part of it is the Griffin. So he's neutral graveyard hate. So I think that's the biggest thing. So neutral graveyard hating just currently doesn't really, it's not available to all factions. Really only monsters can do it with Ghouls, Catacan, Griffin. And Nilfgaard can do it with Vicovara Medic. So the thing about this being a silver neutral unit, remember how Cyprian Wiley rose to popularity in the closed beta when Consume Monsters, led by Dagon, was one of the best decks in the game. So Cyprian Wiley could dispose of Neckers because it would just banish them completely. So that was a tech card because that deck was so popular. So if something like Queensguard got so popular, instead of everybody just shifting to play monsters, you could maybe tech in this guy and it would be better. That's about as good as I can get because Savage Bear plus a 2-strength body doesn't really fill me with too much excitement. And Wyvern is just an 8-strength remove 3, which is okay in a world where he has flexibility. If that's the worst thing you can do or the best thing you can do, that might be okay. And I think maybe I would like to have seen not 2 monsters cards in the Skellige card, maybe 3 different factions. But I still think that there are applications for this card, but his choices are meh. His choices would be, you would need good reason to run this over different cards that can either stronger removal cards or, I don't know why monsters would necessarily run this card. I don't think monsters would because monsters don't necessarily need Savage Bear and they have the other units. So I feel like it's just not for monsters. Anyway, I mean, I think it's just neutral graveyard hate is kind of like the bottom line for this guy. The Clan Drummond Skirmisher. So this card is really cool. This card's really cool. This card is cool like how Alchemist and Darylin Foot Soldiers work. So this guy works with Raiders. So, I should probably tell you what he does. So, Clan Drummond Skirmisher. 8-strength ranged card. Discard a bronze unit from your deck. That's it. So if you discard a Raider, the Raider comes out. In round 3, if you don't have any Raiders in your hand, this is a 14-point bronze card. Seems pretty good because the Raiders do have Veteran. And these guys could have Veteran too. I don't think it said it, but it could have Veteran. I don't think an 8-strength card is going to get Veteran though, personally. But yeah, it works with Raiders, but there's a new way to trigger Raiders. Most importantly, right now Raiders are really good with Bran. They're good with Ermion and Svanrga, but they're good with Bran, and Bran can just get all the Raiders out. There's a lot of Bran plays to do that. But this opens up more opportunities. So non-Bran leaders would be able to use Raiders and this card to get the effective Raiders and get the thinning effect that Bran can get from his faction ability. So Herald could run Raiders, and Drummonds within the deck can provide 12 to 14-point plays. We've seen Calvet run Alchemist and Foot Soldiers, so it's not out. You can make a case for it. Like Calvet's running reveal cards. Why would Herald or Croc not run discard cards, right? So it works, right? It works, and Skellige access. It gives Skellige access to even thinner decks than they currently have, and they currently have a discard variant that can run Siri Dash reliably. So this makes it even thinner than that. And it also means that maybe you could probably run Siri Dash in non-brand decks. That's kind of an exciting thought. So I'm just really interested in seeing what comes from this card, but I feel like on paper this might be the best bronze card that they show. I think this card might be the best one. So good for Skellige. Magni Troop we talked about. Poor flanking infantry. So Poor Infantry is back. If you don't know, Poor Infantry's artwork before was actually part of a three-piece triptych of art. And this was also part of that art. So it's what it appears is a 6-strength body that's going to spawn an infantry on the right and the left. And one of those infantry is going to be the infantry art that you know and love. We don't know how strong those infantry are. And we also know that because this guy's 6 strength, that you're not going to be able to buff it up with the Kidweni Sergeant. It's just going to start off at 6. That's a good thing. It's a good thing, generally. And the other cool thing is that if you buff up your Blue Stripes Commando, the Poor Infantry would actually pull out the Blue Stripes Commando if you were to buff a Commando up to 6, Dandelion the Commandos. I like that tech sometimes, that technique. So we don't know, like, on each side, like, if the infantry on each side is 1, it's an 8-strength card. It's kind of meh. I mean, it enables Thunderbolt Potion and stuff like that, so that's, not terrible. I mean, we already see Harpies doing that kind of stuff. But if they're 2 on each side, and this card is actually pretty damn good, I think. So, I mean, straight up applications for the card, I don't even know. Like, when I ran full test and closed beta, I ran Poor Infantry because they had great synergy with Thunderbolt Potion and buffs that like hit a number of things. I think I ran Commander's Horn in that deck as well, because you could keep resurrecting them, but you can't res really outside of Shani anymore with with Northern Realms. So the fact that it's still 3 units though, I still think you'll see this play. But like, I was talking with Delta and A-, and we were talking about if we didn't want to run Redanian Knights, like if it was a non-weather meta, like what's the best like core, reliable bronze card that doesn't really need too much synergy? And, like this, like there's not a lot of those cards. Like a lot of these cards have crewman tags or muster effects. Reinforced Trebuchet is like one of the only other salute like choices right there for Northern Realms. But this would just be a solid bronze card you would put in your deck. You have good excuses to run buffs, Thunderbolt Potions, maybe a good excuse to run Gold Vesemir perhaps. But I think that it's great that the card's back in the game. We have to see what the strength levels are at. But I think it's going to be as good as it was. 3 bodies for 1 card is always something you can make use of. Makes removal harder. Knight Elects would have a lot of fun with this card. Like right now I'm running in my armor deck, I run Witchers mainly because the Witchers provide a bunch of bodies for the Knight Elects. I would actually cut Witchers and run these bronze cards. I would strongly consider it. So there's that. I think this card's going to be great. I do believe that is all the cards, though. I do believe we talked about all of them now. Yep. The only thing we didn't talk about... is Seleno Harpy change is confirmed. The Harpies that spawn out of the eggs will be tokens. And we don't know the strength level of those tokens, but they won't automatically be the Harpies that are also in the monster set that triggered Death Wish. So... those Harpies could end up being 2 strength, perhaps. Maybe there's a nerf there. Or they could just be 3 strength vanilla, and Harpies don't get too much of a nerf. And you still can use them for carryover. They just don't trigger with Earth Elementals. But we also know that the standard Harpy is now a 6 strength unit, which makes Death Wish triggering style decks better for monsters. So they have more application to run them in a deck with Earth Elemental, or perhaps Neckers, or, the prize-winning Cow, even. Or the Shadow, which would also help. So there's lots of good stuff coming. Like this is just a scraping, right? We didn't see any new monster cards. We didn't see any new Scoia'tael cards, and there's probably still a lot to see. So it's possible that I don't know. I think anything's possible, honestly, guys. So that's my review of the newest cards. Hope you enjoyed it. And